Hello, everyone. Welcome, one and all. This is the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
And we have the great pleasure and honor today of being joined by a labor organizer and host of the Issa Smalls World YouTube show, Chris Smalls. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a feeling a lot of our audience knows your story somewhat, but I started following you right when news broke of what happened between you and Amazon. So if you want to just fill in some of our audience members as to what your experience is and how you became a labor organizer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll take you back to the beginning. Last year, early February, um, I started to see employees in my facility at JFK in Staten Island, one by one, begin to fall ill. Flu-like symptoms, seeing dizziness, fatigue, vomiting on a daily basis. While we were unprotected at Amazon, no PPE, no cleaning supplies, no real social distancing, no safety guidelines to be enforced at the time. And I tried to take proper precautions by going to my local HR, trying to get answers about what we're going to do. And after going back and forth, I realized that the company pretty much dropped the ball on the virus. We weren't doing anything; it's business as usual. The only option was to stay home, unpaid, or come to work and possibly contract the virus. So I started to take action behind the scenes, sending emails out to, whatever media I could. No response. New York quickly became the epicenter. Early March, I tried to send emails out to the CDC department, Governor Cuomo's office. No response. So now I'm forced to go back to work. And on March 24th, when I returned back, the colleague that I work hand in hand with, she was sick. And she was physically sick to the point where, even though she had a mask on that she brought of her own, I seen it in her eyes. Her eyes were bloodshot. She was walking around sluggish that day. And she told me out of her own mouth that she went and got tested. So back then, while New York City was the epicenter, you couldn't get a test unless you were definitely showing symptoms. So the alarming fact was that she came back to the building possibly testing positive, which she did days later. So I sent her home being a friend and a colleague, and she did. 2 hours later, after that meeting, I mean, after that interaction, we had a meeting, supervisors and management, my boss pretty much, and we learned about a case that was positive in that building 2 weeks prior. And I was quickly scared, and I was like, "Hey, what are we doing? We're closing the building down, shutting it down, sending everybody home, right?" Their response was, "No, business as usual. Don't want to cause a panic. Don't tell any of the employees." And that was the last time I worked for Amazon. Right then and there, I couldn't stand with the fact of side with the fact that management was telling me not to tell the employees that I work 40, 50, 60 hours a week with, who I consider my extended family, not the truth. And I couldn't do that. So I decided to take action again. I left the building, sent out all the emails again, made phone calls, got nowhere. So I had to return back the rest of the week off the clock on my own free will, start organizing workers in the cafeteria. I sat in the cafeteria for 10 hours a day. We went into the general manager's office every single day, interrupting his meetings, voicing my concerns. And at the end of the week, they decided to quarantine just me. Uh, Nobody else. Nobody in my department. Nobody that worked around the colleagues that tested positive. Not even the colleague that I ride to work with every single day. It was just me. So that right there told me two things: that they were targeting me, and they wanted to stop me from raising concerns and try to silence me. So I took further action, and on March 30th, I held the protest outside of JFK, Staten Island. And 2 hours after that protest, I was fired. over the phone. A week later, Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, and his top general counsel decided to hold a meeting about me, smear campaigns, calling me not smart or articulate, making me the face of the whole union organizing efforts against Amazon. But somebody in that room, that conference meeting, decided to leak that conversation. So that pretty much catapulted me into the spotlight. But I decided to fight back and form an organization. And for the last 9 months, I've been traveling the country protesting in front of Jeff Bezos' residence.
Oh wow. So you ever come out?
Now, you know, the closest thing we got when we went to Beverly Hills to his $165 million mansion in Beverly Hills,
Uh,
he sent out a drone. Somebody sent out a drone and it like scrambled all of our live streams and Wi-Fi. So good possibility he was home. And
that's
then a
like
couple months,
that's like you went to Lex Luthor's house, man.
yeah. Well, the one in New York City, we went to the $80 million mansion in New York City for Christmas, and the lights were on. So, and
Mhm.
he paid half the precinct to come surround us. So, he's very aware of what I be doing.
That's insane. So how did you feel when you heard, because one of the people in that conversation with Bezos, and from what I understand, the person who actually advised the strategy of targeting you as being not smart and articulate was actually formerly Obama's press secretary, wasn't it?
No, no, that's Jay Carney, but
Jay Carney, yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was present. You know, this meeting was once again with from what I understand his top VPs, and I'm pretty sure Jay Carney was on that meeting.
Well, yeah, no, he was definitely. I mean, from what
Yeah,
I've
he was
read, he
definitely,
was. Yeah.
and you know, he went on CNN and said some lies. You know, he's a professional liar. That's what he does. So, you know,
Mm,
I don't know why anybody would believe that. You know, even when he went on CNN, he lied to the public, saying that they're not aware of how many cases are in those facilities. Amazon's ran completely off of metrics and numbers, so I'm pretty sure they know
right.
uh, how many cases are in these facilities, but it would never be public knowledge.
Yeah, and
Right.
you were told not to alert other coworkers, right? That there were sick people on the job, so that there was no pan. I mean, that's diabolical.
Yeah, it's business. You know, putting profit above people. You know, they rather keep their operation going by any means necessary, even if it means contracting the deadly virus, then keep their workforce safe, home and paid.
And
You
this
know,
was at a time when there were freezers of dead people
Mm-hmm. Yep.
outside hospitals in New York City. This was not when, we had ICU capacity, right? I mean, when you say this was the epicenter, it wasn't just the epicenter geographically, but this was the peak of the virus. Like even now where our numbers are out of control, you're not seeing the death rates and the, hospitals not being able to treat people. I mean, some people at that time were being told, like certain ambulance drivers, certain medical personnel were being told, like, listen, if a person seems too far gone, let them die because we don't have room for them. I
that's
mean,
true.
so that's the backdrop against which all of this took place. But let me ask you, so you said you spent some time in the cafeteria, in the break room. What was your experience organizing workers? Because I think, and I'm not just saying this to flatter you, I'm saying this because I really think it's true. This country is going to live or die based on how many thousands of Chris Smalls can rise up in the next 2 to 4 years. I believe the only way that we're ever going to make any kind of change is from people doing what you did, workers organizing at their place of work. And so, what was your experience like? What were some of those conversations like? What were some of the challenges to getting people angry enough to like join you and take action?
The challenges was people financial. You know, a lot of the workers there wanted to stand up with me and stay off the clock. You know, and majority of them did for the whole week that I was there. But at the same time, they got families at home. They couldn't do it every single day. So the workers that were off the clock, unpaid, they took a risk. they took the risk with me. And it was a difficult conversation because, on one hand, we all thinking about our financial responsibilities, but on the other hand, we're thinking about living, our health. So, and I always say, we're an essential worker. That means our health should be an essential necessity too. So, we can't put profits above our own lives and take a risk of bringing this virus. If we're asymptomatic or we're able to work normal or live normally, doesn't mean that the next person is. So, that was my biggest concern, bringing this virus home to my children and my family above all. So that's where a lot of the workers, was really motivated to speaking up about. We have children at home underlining health conditions, senior citizens at home, grandparents, whatever the case may be. We all related to that. So that conversation, it helped galvanize the workers to walk into the general manager's office. But after seeing them quarantine me and then fire me, all of that momentum goes away because now they see that Amazon made an example of me, or at least attempted to. So that's the biggest fear is how Amazon bust and union bust the workers up.
Yeah, and now there's an Amazon union vote in Birmingham, Alabama. The voting starts this month. Have you been trying to organize with any of those workers? I know you have set up an organization called the Congress of Essential Workers. Are you following that at all? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of my members from my org has been communicating with that union. So we have provided a statement. We stand in solidarity with RWDSU, and we applaud their actions. And I definitely have reached out to them, trying to just make sure our message align. I don't have to do anything. I just have to support it, and I absolutely do. I'm glad that they were able to accomplish what they did because we're hoping that we'll have positive news on February 8th so we can use this news that Amazon's officially has a building unionized for the first time in America to galvanize other buildings and sweep the nation. So it's been great to see so far the process. We know Amazon is doing everything in their power to stop it, or just pretty much break the workers up, firing them, putting up signs, pushing back the union vote. They tried that already. Uh, what else they did? They tried to have them come in person to vote instead of mail-in ballots. So we know the things that Amazon is going to do, but we just
Well,
got.
aren't they also sending in? And this is really bringing back a blast from the past. Aren't they sending in like Pinkertons undercover to spy on people? Like these guys were there for the original labor movement to do that.
Yeah. They Amazon is, they go to the extreme measures. That's one example. The Pinkertons, they have CIA intelligence. We all know that they fund the ICE programs, police unions, the technology, these doorbell ring, all of that stuff is surveillance. So
Mhm.
Amazon is definitely um they won't hold back any expense. They surveil me all the time. I can tell you that. Just from my own personal experience. I'm pretty sure I've been followed before. So this is the type of company that we're dealing with here.
Wow. And the conditions in the Amazon warehouses before any of this happened, there were a lot of articles written about the conditions being really difficult and almost inhumane
Yeah,
conditions in these warehouses. Can you speak about that? Like even before COVID, what was it like working there?
yeah. I mean, I would tell my new hires all the time. You got a gym membership, you might want to cancel it. You're working in a building that is 14 NFL football fields. 1.5 million square feet. There's 5,000 people that come in and out these facilities. These buildings are massive. I probably walk the state of Rhode Island every single day. And
Wow.
I work 10, 12-hour shifts, sometimes 14, 16-hour days. So um, they're long hours. You're on your feet all day. You're on the clock as soon as you clock in. So working at Amazon is production warehouse at the end of the day.
Yeah, now I
How,
mean, you really hit the ground running as an organizer and as an activist. And, I'm assuming this is really your first experience doing all that, right? I mean, you said in interviews before that I've watched that this world is completely new to you, right?
It is. It is, but it's funny because Amazon kind of prepared me for it. The 4.5 years that I was there, I was a supervisor for 4 of those years. So I got promoted fairly quickly, and I've been in a leadership position there. I opened up 3 major buildings for them. Started off New Jersey, Connecticut, New York. I did the whole tri-state. I trained hundreds of their higher up management. These are things that they don't know, that Jeff Bezos don't know about me. He don't know how much embedded I was to his own company and how much I knew about running the operations. So I was a leader there, and it was easy for me to carry that over into the activism work that I'm doing now.
And what has that been like? I mean, your story blew up. You started getting all these interviews, right? All of this press. You spoke at the convention for Movement for a People's Party, which I've interviewed those guys a handful of times. And so, what are your thoughts in terms of like politically how to structure a workers movement, a labor movement? And that's one question. I'll stick with one question at a time because I had another one that's somewhat related, but go ahead, you can speak to that first.
Yeah, well, we don't have a party that represents the working class, as we can see. You know, um, that's the number one issue. The People's Party is definitely an option. Something that's separate from corporate ties, no corporate donors, no corporate money. Um, that's what we need. We need people that's going to represent the working class people. And if we don't have that, then we have to start thinking about a foundation for that. We know that the Democrat and Republican Party is not um, pretty much holding up to anything that we asked for. We've seen that throughout the course of this pandemic, seeing the true colors of what this country really is, being stripped down to capitalism that's running this country. So it's time for the working class people to stand up. As half of us is facing eviction or unemployment, um, what better time than to stand up than now? So that's what I'm just trying to do. The reason why I called my organization the Congress of Essential Workers, because you know the ultimate goal is to have more power than Congress. The working class people, is more of us than them. And Amazon, for example, is 600,000 people, 800,000 now nationwide. Imagine if all of us decide to stay home for one day, and how much power that is. So when the government is saying, we're essential workers, you got to go to work in the middle of a pandemic for minimum wage, no hazard pay, no PPE, you're gonna be like, hell no. You're not going until you meet our demands as working people. So that's what I'm hoping to get to one day. Have enough workers' power to fight back whenever we're unprotected, and fight for protections as well.
Yeah, and good wages. I mean, I was glad you came out with a demand for $30 an hour, right? You said as an Amazon wage.
Right.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
love $30 an hour because we've as progressives, follow politics all the time. We've been trying to bang down the door for $15 an hour minimum wage for years. But of course, if the minimum wage kept up with
is that what you get
inflation,
at Amazon? I mean, that's what you get in New York, right? Because
Well,
what's that?
Amazon is more. I
the
mean,
wage, what they get at Amazon.
they pay more, but they also go by state variation, depending on where you live in the country. If you live in Florida, you're not getting that.
Right. In
Um,
New York, the state minimum wage is I think 11.80 now. And so what does Amazon pay like an entry level worker now? About 17?
Staten Island was actually the highest paid building in the network, so I think they were getting 19.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. But anyway, what I was saying is that if minimum wage kept up with the price of inflation, it'd be well over $20 an hour. It'd be like 22.50 an hour.
yeah,
But then you have to say, okay, why should the richest company in the world be paying minimum wage? right?
Yeah.
So then you have to say, okay, yeah. So I love the demand $30 an hour, and people say, oh, $30 an hour. $30 an hour times 40 hours a week is $62,000 a year. After taxes, a little over 50 grand a year. Took about about $1,000 a week. In New York City, that's an exorbitant wage in New York City. I mean, of course not.
No way. It's you know what, and we can argue that, so $30 an hour is definitely overdue, long overdue. We're fighting for 15. We started this fight 5 years ago. So the time that we get to it, we're due another raise. So
Right,
it's just like
exactly.
you might as
Yeah.
well get
Yeah.
done. I don't understand why people think that we're unskilled workers, or we're unskilled, or uneducated, untrained. I don't understand that. We got to get out of these terms and this mindset that we don't deserve a decent living wage. Just because I didn't go to college doesn't make me any less of a worker than you. Because to be honest with you, the ones that came from college, they have to learn from me. Because I had to train them. When I got hired at Amazon and I had the experience to do the job, when they come from college and they hire these external hires, that's management, that's going to be my boss, they have to train with me for weeks and sometimes months to learn the process. So, the mindset that we don't have, unskilled, our skills is ridiculous. We got to get out of these terms and make sure that, we get the things that we deserve as working class people.
Now, have you gotten support from any politicians for your cause and your movement and what you've been trying to do with Amazon?
Well, I mean, they did what politicians do. They ride the wave. A lot of them, 13 of them signed letters. The letters that they signed, the list from Bernie Sanders all the way to Cory Booker here in New Jersey. There's so many of them that signed letters to Jeff Bezos on my behalf, but
Hmm.
that's about it. We need more than that. We need them to put some bills in action. The letter to Jeff Bezos, that gets to him, but that doesn't do anything. We got to make sure that go to Capitol Hill and put these bills in order to change some of these laws.
Yeah.
And how are you feeling about the labor policies coming out of the new Biden administration?
I mean, it's a glimmer of hope, but at the same time, he has to include everybody. And we can't allow, Amazon is already making their lobbyist playbook, sending letters to him asking for the vaccine.
Right, right.
Got the brother-in-law on one of the committees. So there's certain ties that they have to sever, or not, don't do business with, and do business with workers. We have to have some type of voice in there in the White House, and I don't think we have that yet. I feel like we're getting there, but we don't have time to wait right now. So I'm hoping that the things I'm doing and with other activists and labor movements that's global will apply that pressure so that we can get a voice in the White House.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you said that I thought was really interesting is that you're skeptical of centralized power even in a union setting, right? Even in a union environment. I saw an interview that you gave where you basically said that, unions themselves can be corrupted and that we have to make sure it's employee driven. And so how do you think that can be structured in a way? Because I was talking to Russell about this offline yesterday. I said so much of like the new, younger left has this sort of like romanticized vision of what a union is. And I'm obviously pro union. I think I could speak for all three of us when we say we're pro union. But part of what comes with Democrats abandoning unions is that the unions themselves, some of them, become engines of right wing politics at the rank and file level. Like, these aren't, like Russell said, these aren't guys busting out acoustic guitars singing Woody Guthrie songs. I worked seasonally at a UPS warehouse right down the road from my house. And their union, their core demand was, we don't want management forcing our union members to wear masks at work. That was their big demand. You would think it would be the exact opposite. And for some unions, it is. Some unions want to say, hey, you got to keep our workers safe. That's the point of a union, right? But no. So some of these unions are fucked up. And
Nope.
so I think it's really smart to be like, okay, look, we don't want to create one giant union that's so big that it itself becomes corrupted, and then we're facing essentially the same problem. Rather than going up against Jeff Bezos, we're going up against a corrupt union boss, right?
Yeah.
And so, what are your ideas about sort of keeping it, as you said, under the employee's control?
Yeah, we gotta take a page out of I applaud what Google workers did. Shout out to Chewy Shaw. The way that they organize is they started their committees, their worker-driven committees within their workplace, and the movement got grew bigger, and they skipped the middleman, which is the NLRB, and they announced that they starting a union regardless, and now the company has to, once again, make a decision. Are you going to really go against, thousands of workers, a couple hundred workers? I don't think so. So that's what I'm hoping, that we do the same thing at Amazon. Um, every building is different, and every building, has the right to unionize. So Alabama will be the first one, but that doesn't mean that specific union is going to represent the workers here in New York City, or Staten Island, for example, where the wages and the cost of living is different. So you want to have something in every building that represents your community. And I feel like if every building started their own rank and file committee, that's worker driven, that would be more beneficial for the Amazon workers or for any essential worker or essential business. Rank and file committees within your workplaces, where your workers now have the power to negotiate their own contracts. That's what I feel like will be the grounds for union structure. It's the same thing, just without the middleman. And I feel like that is leverage when you're going up against somebody like Jeff Bezos. That's anti-union. It doesn't want his company to be unionized. It's either, you have 600,000 workers that's going to say, hey, look, give us our committee, or we're going to unionize on you. So you have one or the other, pick your choice. So that's what I hope one day we'll have, to, have that point to get to.
Yeah,
Well,
no, I think that's. Sorry, go ahead, Russell.
why is it so difficult to organize a strike? Because what really occurs to me, being somebody who has been basically in the house for over a year, is everybody's dependent on Amazon right now. I mean, the workers have never had more power over the economy, potentially, than they do right now. The Amazon workers walk out. Oh my God, everybody is completely screwed. Screwed.
well,
Those workers
well,
have kept society functioning for a year.
but that's the thing. It's so crazy because you think we would be, but honestly, I tell people this. I worked at the company all those years, and I hardly ever ordered from Amazon. And ever since, obviously,
Well, because you
obviously
saw
now,
how the sausage was made.
well, not even that. Not even that. I just wasn't. I'm not hooked. It's a
Mm,
drug.
mm.
It's a drug to be ordering from Amazon, sitting there scrolling. It's like an app now. It's people order from. I heard people say I've ordered there. I order something every day just because.
Mm-hmm.
Just because. So like people got to break. It's really a drug. You don't need Amazon. I haven't used it since I've been fired, obviously, and and I'm fine. I get everything I need from elsewhere. We got to support our local business that's going out of business because Amazon's putting them out. Number one,
Mhm.
and think about this. Why is it so difficult to do a strike? Because once again, it's the mindset that everybody's in. Everybody's like, "Oh, we can't strike because we need a mutual aid." A mutual aid. We talk about general strikes, and everybody's like, "Oh, we need a huge, massive, mutual aid for workers." And I get it. Yeah, we do. You know, if for some reason you think the billionaires are going to just, fire everybody and replace them, and we're going to need a mutual aid, I don't think that's going to happen. Like you said, Amazon workers, imagine this, everybody, 600,000 or 800, whatever it is now, decides to take off one day of work.
Yep.
One day, Jeff Bezos loses millions of dollars, right?
Imagine a week.
Imagine And one day, just say one day, because
Mm-hmm.
the man makes 13 billion, almost 13 billion a day anyway. One day, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of his workers go to work. Do you know the rest of these billionaires will crumble? They will
Mm-hmm.
tremble at their knees if they see that happen to him, because
Mm-hmm.
that's their biggest competition. So if you're going for the jugular, everybody else is going to fall in line. There's no way you're going to tell me that Walmart, Target, Instacart, Uber, all these other big techs are not going to pay attention to what just happened
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
Amazon. And that's what we have to think about. Amazon workers really did a nationwide strike.
Yeah.
How much power that is.
Yeah, and it would be not just a way of sticking it to Bezos, but it's a huge societal disruption.
Mm-hmm.
If people
Yeah.
don't get their shit when they're supposed to. And so, because it's such a societal disruption, it would force everybody to pay attention to it
Yeah.
and take a position on it, right? I mean, that's what a strike really has to do. You have to force people to know about it in a way that impacts them, which forces them to think about it and say, okay, are we going to side with Jeff Bezos or are we going to side with the workers? A vast majority of Americans would side with the workers over Jeff Bezos in that. But you have to kind of force that to happen. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic idea. One of the things though that I always got a sense of at work was that not only are people afraid to stand up to management because they're afraid of the boss, but tell me if there's any truth to this in your experience. I feel like there's a certain stigma that comes with raising your voice because your coworkers kind of look at you as the person who could afford to raise their voice because that's the person who doesn't need the job as much as I do. You kind of follow what I'm saying? Like, oh, this guy, speaking
Well,
up, he must not need the $19 an hour as much as we do.
well, that's the thing. When Amazon workers, for example, you're dealing with so many uh, different classes of people and races as well.
Right.
Um, you gotta understand. Amazon hires a lot of uh, black and brown, of course, and immigrants. And the immigrants' mindset, it's always been, this company has my information.
Mm-hmm.
If I stick up, I'm going to get deported. So now that's a whole group of people that you have to worry about as well. They're not going to say anything. They're just not. They won't jeopardize that. And that includes Hispanics, that includes Somalians, Muslims. These are different type of races that are in these facilities and make a mass majority of the workforce. It's so hard for them to speak up, even though they want to, but they're scared. They're afraid because they know Amazon being um, as intelligent as it is, having the surveillance that it does. They know where they live, they have their family's information, they know what this company is capable of doing, and they're scared. So that's one class of people. Then you got to think about, once again, the communities that we come from, like you mentioned. Some of us do have the luxury to speak up, others don't, and that's another mass majority um, that live check to check, that relying on, they can't even afford to miss a few hours of work. This hourly wage is important to them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many things, intangibles you have to overcome just to organize workers, number one. And trying to do that on a larger scale, that's even harder, especially when I'm going up against this company that controls the market, controls the media, controls the propaganda commercials that come out. There's so many things I have to fight back against, and I'm still trying to get workers to tell the truth, tell their stories, and that's what it's about: consistency on telling these workers' stories, getting their voices out there, and uplifting them so that the public is aware of what's going on with Amazon.
Yeah. Go ahead, Russell.
Um, so are you saying organizing a strike with these workers would almost not be possible? Like, do you feel it would be possible to get them to walk out, or there are just too many people who, for their various, very justifiable, understandable reasons, just can't jeopardize themselves that way?
You know, um, that's a hard question, but I feel like we may have a shot this year. I don't know if you guys heard about this last Amazon employee who passed away 2 weeks ago. She was a COVID tester at Amazon, and she tested workers, her
Mhm.
coworkers. Um, she suddenly died at 38 in her sleep last 2 weeks ago. The company didn't realize it. Called her phone. Her sister picks up. They asked her immediately, when is she coming back to work, regardless of her well-being. Her sister pretty much was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, she passed away." And speaking of that, can you guys help us out? She was a worker there. We don't know how she died. Um, she died suddenly in her sleep, leaving behind her 12-year-old daughter, and she's 38 years old, black woman from
Mhm.
Virginia. Her name was Pushan Brown, and her sister explained to the company they need help burying her. And for an
Uh-huh.
autopsy, maybe she did die from COVID. We don't know.
Mhm.
We need autopsy money. The company said we'll get back to you. Do you know they didn't get back to her? Fortunately, some worker from that building reached out to me and told me what happened. So I reached out to them, to Christina Brown, the Brown family, through their GoFundMe. And we've been talking, and I was able to connect them with Status Coop for Jordan. Shout out to Jordan from Status Coop, and amplify her story to the point where she went from having $700 in her GoFundMe to now upwards of 32,000. And this story is now picking up so much traction that reporters are now flocking to her to get her side, because the
Mhm.
company should be held accountable for that. Um, Her sister was a COVID tester in this building for months on end, testing other workers, no medical experience, no training, no proper PPE. We're not talking N95s and gowns and facial
Mhm.
shields. He had none of that.
Nothing.
None.
Nothing really.
So these are
That's
the type of
amazing.
stories that need to be out there. And I'm hoping that one of these stories, which should be hers, should be not even hers, it should be all of the workers who have died, because it's been multiple, double digits of workers, families to come out and tell their stories, because that I feel will be galvanizing for the public, number one, to boycott this company or take action against this company. And number two, for workers to really feel like, hey, we're in this situation because I seen this happen at my building. So something's got to give, and I feel like we might be at that breaking point right now. Her story is very powerful. I had her on my podcast as well, and we're trying to push that out there.
Yeah, so you said she was a COVID tester, no PPE. So someone who works for Amazon, who they just had, just test workers, either randomly or every week or so when they come in. Did you have to request a test if you weren't feeling good? Like, how did they do the testing? I mean, maybe you don't know because you haven't worked there in a while, but do you have any
Oh,
information on that?
I know. Trust me, I get the full scoop from multiple sources, but yeah. So the way it works is they come in and you just go get a test whenever you feel like it. You
If you
know,
want, whenever you want it.
every single day, days on end. She's testing hundreds of workers a week, and they don't know their results until they come back. So somebody coming there and you're testing them, they're positive, and you're unprotected with the wrong PPE.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
It's just crazy. It's crazy. I mean, it's one of the richest companies in the world. They don't hire a nurse to do this.
Oh, here's the thing. So here's the reason why I say the company should be held accountable. Because number one, what happened with me and my story. And if you go back to when I was on 60 Minutes with Laura Stow, and they had Dave Clark, the head of their operations, he tested himself on live TV and said, "This is the process we're doing." And um, he lied then, and he said, they're going to have medical professionals at every building, and they changed the process. They always say this: 150 processes. We added 150 processes. One of the processes was saving money, and that is by not hiring a third party to test themselves. Instead, you got your workers testing themselves, or testing each other. So they just recently started changing the process, from what I've heard recently, to workers now testing themselves instead of testing each other. But in the beginning, they were testing each other because they wanted to make sure that they were getting a hold of this virus, which they failed to do multiple times. And this is another example.
That's insane. What if the person you're testing has COVID? Like, why would you? Like, this is like if you're designing a way to spread a virus, this is what you would do. I want all the workers to get close enough to each other to test each other.
Right.
That's how we're going to do the testing.
And if the tester gets it and doesn't know it, now the tester is right near however many hundreds of people are getting tested that day or that week.
And these testing sites are staging areas are inside the workplace. It's not like they have tents outside of the building. They're inside the work.
Right.
They're literally inside the building where they're working. And the facility that she was specifically, no plexiglass, no. It's just we have video. We have.
It's just unbelievable.
It doesn't make any sense of how they think this was safe. No plexiglass, no nothing. She's testing workers right there on the floor while you got workers working on the assembly line on the other side. It's like, really? Come on, Amazon. But, these are the things that the public don't know about, stories that the public will never hear. Because had I not reached out to her, she'd have been silenced. She'd have been another dead Black woman that has a 12-year-old daughter now with no mother, another broken family, and nobody would have ever known a damn thing. So, this is the things that we have to push out as independent media, and just try to fight back against these juggernauts and Amazon and all these big tech corporations.
Yeah. So I guess we'll wrap pretty soon. Speaking of independent media, you said you started a YouTube show and podcast of your own. Do you want to just plug that a bit and talk about your efforts there as a commentator now? I mean, you obviously have more credibility than any of us. Speaking for Russell and I, what's that been like? I mean, what are you looking to do with that? Because you're really in the world of organizing now, and now you're starting your own media channel, and I think this is fantastic, and this is this is why you need platforms for independence, and it's also why, like you just said, these big tech companies are dangerous, because here we are doing a show about labor power and the evil of these big tech companies. I'm using Zoom to record it. We're live streaming it on Facebook. I'm going to put it on YouTube. The podcast is on Apple, right? I mean, like, we're in their house.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
careful about what we say right now. We might not even be.
Well, I saw it in action yesterday because I was writing an article about the Wall Street bets thing and the whole GameStop thing. And Jim Cramer at one point in an interview said, "Well, what are you bothering them for? We like the stock." So they really grabbed onto that. "We like the stock" became like a motto for them. At the beginning of the day, when I was looking for a link for the article, Jim Cramer saying that was like easy, right at the top on the YouTube search.
Oh yeah.
By the end of the day, when I had to go back and look at it, wasn't there anymore. Like I had to go into my history. It didn't come up in the algorithm anymore.
Censorship. Yeah.
I mean, you can see it if you're paying attention.
Yeah.
If you're looking at the things they don't want you to look at, you'll notice it pretty quick.
It's blatant. And well, yeah, my podcast is exactly about fighting against that, telling our truth, controlling our narratives, hearing stories directly from the sources, and speaking truth to the power. We just started it. We just launched it. Once again, you can find it on YouTube, and patreon.com. It's called It's a Smalls World. A female-led show, 3 female co-hosts. Shout out to Chelsea, Noor, and Blakely. Every Sunday, every week, we're gonna have new content. Gonna have guest speakers on. So yeah, just stay tuned. And yeah, this is new territory for me as well. But I've been on quite a few podcasts. I lost count. So I'm just trying to once again use the platform to uh, definitely amplify the labor movement and amplify any movement, the social injustice, the environmental, and that's what it's about: telling our truth, having our own media outlets um, that go against what was put out there to the media, which is not always the truth. And um, I just hope that people tune in and really take away messages from it, because we're gonna educate people on the movements, on how we can get involved in your local community, or getting involved on a broader scale. And we want everybody to really focus on what the future lies ahead. What ways we could overcome what we've been through for the last year, and what we're facing in 2021, because it's not going to get any easier.
Yeah, no, for sure. And one more thing I think you should plug to make sure people know how to get involved with is your organization, Congress of Essential Workers. How do people get involved with that if they want to?
Absolutely, yeah. Follow us on social media as well at TCOEW, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, tcoew.org. Stay tuned. We're going to have some amazing demonstrations coming up this year. It's looking like since it's coming up on a year, we'll probably be back in Staten Island March 30th, JFK, our next action.
That's the
Oh,
thing, man.
nice.
Like, who knew at the time all this was happening to you? Who knew we would still be in the throes of this thing now? Almost a year later. Like, I remember telling one of my jobs, like, yeah, I'm gonna stay home for the next couple of weeks to see how things go. On like March 15th, and here we are. I mean, it's just crazy.
No, yeah, this year went by super fast. I'm still like looking at my like memories. You know how you have like memories on your phone,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm like looking at what I was doing last year, and um I was amazed, because I'm like I was actually partying and then like going to the gym and
Yep.
all the
Yep.
stuff that I can't do anymore. So it's like, it's so weird how life changed in the blink of an eye. But here we are. And a year later, we're still fighting for those same basic demands. And that's how things gotta change. A year later, we're still fighting.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Russell, do you have any final questions before we wrap?
No, I just want to say, man, you're an inspiration. It's very
Thank
inspiring hearing you speak and seeing what you're doing. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely anytime.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. We would love to have you on again. And any other actions that you have coming up, if you want, just send us a message. We'll help get the word out. And if you want to come on to talk about those, yeah, absolutely, yeah, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Will do.